Greetings, fellow Watford fans. Omar here with another You ORNS observation. This one about Joao Pedro. Very concerned, of course, aren't we all, about Joao Pedro and his future in terms of his health. And just a few days ago, some of us as Watford supporters, wondering about his future at the club. And again, at the time, I had said just a week or two ago, don't worry about Joao Pedro leaving in January. He will be here. It's the summer of 2023 that I am worried about because I think he'll be gone. Now, look, things have changed drastically since then because with Joao Pedro's injury and the reality that he will be out now, according to the head coach Slaven Bilic, for 6 to 8 weeks, means that things have changed. Obviously, Joao Pedro's not going anywhere. And in the summer, we will see if he still goes. I still think that's very much on the cards. But first things first, this injury, which is a very serious injury now to his left ankle, where according to Slaven Bilic, there was ligament damage. And so that is going to be the thing that keeps him out for at least 2 months. I think it's going to be 2 months, it's 6 to 8 weeks. And usually those things are conservative estimates. So for me, you can expect that probably to go beyond the 8 weeks. And don't forget, what he's not going to just rush back into action. He's going to be gently integrated back into the side. But 2 months, let's look at 2 months as the worst case scenario. 2 months is really more than a third of the remainder of your season in the championship if you're Watford Football Club. And so what these men have to do on the pitch now is take up the slack for Joao Pedro and absolutely fight for the shirt. Will these lads do it? I think that's the question. Will the remainder of the players, now without their star player, pick up the mantle and start to graft a whole lot more and a whole lot more urgently and passionately? Because we have not seen that in some of these games. In fact, throughout this season, there have been games every 3 or 4 games, it seems, or maybe 2 games out of every 4, where Watford just are not putting forward the kind of effort from start to finish that we want to see and that we have seen in decades past, when you knew that every time a Watford team stepped on the pitch, they would absolutely fight for that shirt and absolutely give 110%. What about these lads now? Well, of course, it's a different era now in football across the board. And for Watford Football Club, you have players, some of whom do fight for the shirt, and many of whom take the day off conveniently. And in some of these performances, have not applied themselves when the occasion clearly demanded that they did apply themselves. And as far as I'm concerned, with Joao Pedro out, and of course, really hoping for a speedy recovery for him, it's now the onus is now on these players who are now here, who are not injured, to put forth their very best efforts. Of course, starting with the game tomorrow against Swansea, which I'll talk about in a separate video. Joao Pedro, the silver lining for him is that he is a young lad. He's 21 years of age. This injury, which was this troublesome left ankle that kept him out of a game or two prior to this one, way back at near the beginning of the season. The fact that he's 21 years old helps him because he's got age on his side. And that also means that he is likely and he will heal much quicker from this injury as opposed to someone like a Tom Cleverley, who's been out now for months. And he had an Achilles heel injury or something of that nature that has kept him out since the end of August. Now, he is still out and he's probably not expected back for at least another month or two. Now, if Joao Pedro was in the same boat age-wise as Tom Cleverley is, we would have been talking about the rest of the season for Joao Pedro out. But as it is, as a 21-year-old, Joao Pedro will heal quicker and recover quicker from this injury. Now, this is the first major injury of his professional career, in his budding professional career. So that will be the challenge for Joao Pedro. It's going to be a mental challenge for him, more so than it will be a physical one. Because again, as I say, this is the first severe injury that he's had in his professional footballing career. So what it's going to mean for Joao Pedro is that he's going to have to draw on all the mental resources and all of his mental fortitude to go through these incredibly difficult next few weeks. I think Joao Pedro is going to do that and do it well. He may seek the counsel of veteran players like Tom Cleverley or Courtney House, who both of whom have been out for long term with injuries, to try to get himself into that frame of mind where he has to do the grind that he has to go through. And certainly he can also point to someone like Imran Loser for counsel, because of course Loser has had this happen to him twice. Serious injuries in the space of a quick amount of time and very little time on the pitch indeed playing. So those are three of the people, Loser, Cleverly, and House, that I think Joao Pedro can lean on for some counsel, for some words, because this is going to be a difficult time for him. It really will be. You know, he's a young lad, so this will be especially tough for him. And he does need support, and I'm sure he'll get it from lots of us as Watford supporters, and of course, the teammates that he has who will also give him advice. There's so many Watford players out injured, at least 8 at the moment. And, Watford now have to really look at what's going on in January. And I think for Joao Pedro, I think he'll come through this. And I'm confident that he will. Again, my sincere prayers to him at this very difficult time for him going through his career, wishing him a very speedy recovery. And he'll be back. I think he'll be back better. And he will be all the more stronger as well. So it's a very difficult thing to miss that amount of time and to have that kind of injury. And I do expect that Joao Pedro will bounce back at some point in the next 2 months plus. But as far as the rest of things go for this team on the pitch and off the pitch, as I said, the team must pick up the slack now that Joao Pedro is out. This is your top scorer who will be out for 2 months at least, and 6 to 8 weeks is what we're told. There needs to be other players to pick up the mantle. Keenan Davis is going to have to step up. Ismail Assar is going to have to step up. Bakun Bayo, when he's on the pitch, is going to have to step up. And Samuel Kalu is going to have to step up. Those are among the players, and Ken Sema, I think, can do some of that too. But those are the players I've just mentioned. They are the ones who are going to have to, they're going to have to pull their weight here significantly. Now, the thing about off the pitch for Watford is that they are going to have to look at getting another forward. They're going to have to. Goals are going to be the difference, obviously, in this championship. And you need to score goals, obviously, to win games. And I think that what Watford have to do now is change their priorities. They've got enough midfielders. They've signed additional midfielders. They're going to be getting midfielders back. Their priority now, in my view, has to be looking at that forward line and looking at the right back situation. I think both of those are the most urgent things to be addressed right now. Watford do have defenders, and they have some coming back. Sierralta's been on the bench now for the last couple of games. So I expect that Sierralta will come into the mix here in some of these games in this busy festive period, of course. And we'll see about if that indeed materializes. But I think now the Watford board's priority has to be 2 areas, right back and the forward line, because I think that you've got to get goals out of there. You only have 2 players scoring the bulk of your goals this season, that being Joao Pedro and Ismail Assar. And Ismail Assar is a very mercurial player. I think he's going to be staying through January. I don't think Sar's going anywhere. I think in the summer, conceivably, he could also be gone. There are Watford supporters that I know who have told me directly that they want Sar out of the club. They really have gone sour on Sar, and not just this season, but in previous seasons, ever since after his stellar campaign in 2021, of course, when the team he played with, Watford, ended up getting promoted, and he scored the goal from the penalty spot that made that happen. And Sar was the player of the year that year in 2021 on the promotion year to the Premier League, I should say. Ever since after that, lots of Watford fans have been very discontent with the way that Ismail Assar has played, and he has not been up to the kind of player that he was when he won Player of the Season in 2021, or the kind of player he was when he scored those great goals against Liverpool in February of 2020. The Sarr that we see on a club level is not the same as the Sarr that we see when he's playing for Senegal on the World Cup stage, when he's playing internationally. There's obviously a very different kind of hunger and passion to Ismail Assar when he is on duty for his national team. And so we know the difference there is very clear. So a lot of Watford fans discontent and unhappy with Ismail Assar. And Ismail Assar is going to be a player that I'm going to be watching now over these next 2 months without Joao Pedro. How does Sarr get on? Because when Sarr is isolated in these games, he disappears. he does not impact the game. He had a very good chance the other day, of course, in the game there against Millwall, and he didn't put it away. It was a great tackle by a Millwall player. Many Watford fans would say that that was a foul. I don't think it actually was. He went down the box, but I don't think it was a foul. It was just a great, I hate to say it, but it was a great defensive challenge by the Millwall player. So, look, the bottom line here is that these next 2 months now are critical, not just on the pitch, but off it. What is this Watford brass in the front office going to be doing? Because, again, the priorities now have shifted from looking at fortifying other areas of the pitch to looking specifically first and foremost at getting another forward to bolster that forward line. And then secondly, just right behind that priority, getting a right back, because so far this season it's not really worked. Now Jeremy Ngaki has had not enough games, hasn't had enough games, I should say. So there's not a really big sample size on Jeremy Ngaki. But there are Watford supporters who are not happy with him, who have not been happy with him for a number of seasons. Although I think that Ngakia is just getting the bad run of the green, if you will. He's not getting the rub of the green at all. He's had injuries, and when he's come in, he's done a decent job, not an excellent job by any stretch. Sure, he's made mistakes, as every footballer does, but I do think that if he can get a run in the side and start to grow into that position, then he is someone that Watford should rely on. But in the short term, I think it's important to get a right back, because if Ngaki goes down injured again, we are very, very thin in that position. In fact, as I've always said, I said it before this season began, we have a very thin squad to begin with. And if you've got a very thin squad to begin with, and if you're not investing in those key areas of the squad, and you're not bringing up youth and you're not recruiting right, what do you expect you're going to see on the pitch? One injury becomes two, becomes three, becomes five, becomes eight. And so this is the situation that the Watford front office and the owner have not done well on at all in the last few years. We all know that. We've had a new recruit, new sporting director come in, Ben Manga, and I forget her last name. Heidi is her first name. She's come in as well. Let's see what they do. I mean, for me, they've got the rest of the season. And of course, I think this January transfer window, and they've got the summer transfer window. And after that, if they have not started to do the kinds of things that you would hope for, maybe the jury will start to be out on them. I mean, they need to be given some time, but the situation at this club of recruiting has been abominable for years. The pipeline from the academy to the first team has been an absolute joke. We have not played the players that I think we should be playing. Shaq Ford needed to have a bigger run in this side when there was a chance for him to do so at Premier League level. And of course, this season, now he's off to York City for a remainder of the season-long loan. And again, this is the kind of thing that Watford keep doing. They then loan out these players who have either 2 minutes playing for Watford or never play for them at all. And it just continues. It just continues. Shaq Ford needs to be given first team football, and he's going to get that at York City. And I wish him the very best with that. Now, I think now that someone like a Shaq Ford should be getting the run, or should have got more of a run in the Watford side. Whether there were injuries to Shaq Ford, whether there weren't, Shaq Ford and other academy players need to be bedded in to this first team. James Morris has had a chance, but I would like to see him get more of a chance. I do not know whether he's injured, whether he's not injured, but all I know is that James Morris had done a pretty decent job in the couple of games that he had played for Watford. I think one of them was a start. And the fact that you're bringing in academy players in this way, I think is not good. You should be bringing in academy players anyway. Don't just bring academy players in when your squad is thin and when there's a gazillion injuries. Bring these lads in from the start of the season and give them a run. See what they can do. If they are performing in training, give them a run. They can't be that bad in training that you're not using them. So why aren't you using them? Jimmy Gilligan and Richard Johnson, I think also they oversee parts of the academy, and they're involved in that as far as I know. If I'm not mistaken, certainly Jimmy Gilligan. I think there needs to be a better synergy between the academy and the first team when you're talking about men's football at Watford. And I do believe that once this recruiting issue gets set properly, with the new sporting director, I think we can absolutely build something for the future. But what you're looking at now is a Watford team that is in the middle of either rebuilding or trying to get promoted. And I think right now there's a synergy or a schism, I should say, between those two planes, and they are not on the same level. One's here and one's there. And the thing is, I don't know that when you have an owner who's got a 5 minute plan, that you're ever going to get a proper level of synergy between recruitment and rebuilding and trying to go for promotion. I've always said I'd much rather have a manager at Watford FC who has a 3 to 5 year plan and rather be honest with the fan base and tell them that you are rebuilding and you are making steps toward a 3 to 5 year plan than to start coming in and saying that nothing less than a championship title will suffice. And we're staying with this man through thick and thin. I'd rather be someone who just tells the fans what the objective is right from the start and stick to it no matter what. Because although Slaven Bilic has done a very good job at Watford, I think he's done a pretty darn good job. The issues here are still the same. It's these players. Some of these players are not grafting consistently, and it has now affected the entire team, especially in these games like the game against Hull, like the game against Coventry, like the game against Millwall. All home matches at the Vic, where Watford just have not played from the outstart, have not played well. So those are some of the things I wanted to talk about here on the You ORNS observation on Joao Pedro and other matters at Watford. Now this front office has to get to work in January. And once again, for Joao Pedro, I wish you a speedy recovery, sir. Be well. This has been the You ORNS observation.